I never meant to fall for him. I never imagined I'd end up in a situation like this, let alone with my own roommate. My name is Alex. I'm 21, just another college student trying to stay afloat between lectures, a part-time job at a quiet little bookstore, and a social life that never quite clicked into place. My world was simple, predictable, maybe even a little dull. I shared a modest downtown apartment with Ryan, someone I'd known since our first semester. He was everything I wasn't: outgoing, confident, the kind of guy people gravitated toward without effort. Living with him was easy. We got along, split responsibilities, shared music, complained about classes. That was the extent of it. Or at least that's what I believed. Until one evening changed everything. It was a Friday. I came home drained, ready to sink into the couch and shut my brain off for the night. But Ryan had that look, the one that meant he was about to pull me into something. "Alex, sit down. I need a favor," he said casually. I sighed, dropping my bag. "What now?" Instead of answering, he reached under the coffee table and pulled out a box. When he opened it, I froze. Inside were clothes. Not just any clothes, soft, carefully folded pieces, a pastel blouse, a short skirt, sheer stockings, heels. Tucked beside them was a small makeup kit. I blinked, unsure I'd seen that right. "Ryan, what is this?" He just smiled, completely at ease. "I want you to try it on." I stared at him. "You're serious?" "Yeah," he said. "I think you'd look good. Just humor me." My first instinct was to laugh it off. But something about the way he said it, calm, confident, like it was the most normal thing in the world, made it harder to dismiss. I hesitated. It wasn't like the thought had never crossed my mind before. There had been moments in the past, brief, curious, quickly buried. This, though, felt different. Intentional. Real. "I don't know," I muttered. Ryan leaned forward slightly. "It's just trying something new. No pressure. If you hate it, we drop it." Simple. Casual. Almost harmless. And somehow, that made it harder to refuse. After a long pause, I nodded. "Fine. Just once." The process felt surreal from the start. In my room, I picked up the blouse first. The fabric was soft, unexpectedly so. Then the skirt, the stockings, each piece felt unfamiliar, but not entirely uncomfortable. Just different. Noticeably different. Ryan stayed nearby, guiding me without making it feel overwhelming. His tone was easy, reassuring. "Relax," he said. "You're overthinking it." Maybe I was. By the time the makeup came out, something had shifted. I still felt nervous, exposed even, but there was also a strange curiosity building underneath it all. When I finally looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person staring back. It wasn't just the clothes or the makeup. It was something subtler. Softer. Like I was looking at a version of myself I'd never allowed to exist. For a moment, I couldn't look away. Ryan's reaction broke the silence. "See? I told you." There was something in his voice, approval. Maybe that hit harder than I expected. I shifted my weight, taking a cautious step. The heels felt awkward at first, but I adjusted. Slowly. Testing. Learning. And then, unexpectedly, I didn't hate it. That realization lingered, quiet but undeniable. A flicker of excitement, mixed with uncertainty, settled in my chest. I didn't fully understand what I was feeling yet, only that it wasn't as simple as I thought it would be. Somewhere in the back of my mind, another thought surfaced: Emma. My girlfriend. She was supposed to come over later. The idea of her seeing me like this sent a rush of panic through me, but something else too. Something I couldn't quite name. Ryan waved it off. "Relax. Just focus on the moment." So I did. And standing there, caught between hesitation and curiosity, I realized something important. This wasn't just a joke anymore. Something had shifted, and I wasn't sure I could go back. I had no idea just how much my life was about to shift. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a strange experiment, just clothes, just a moment. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. I wasn't just dressing differently. I was stepping into something unfamiliar, something that reached far beyond appearances. And once I'd seen that version of myself, I couldn't forget it. The image lingered in my mind long after that first night, The way the fabric fit, the softer outline of my reflection, the subtle confidence I hadn't expected to feel. It stayed with me, quietly pulling at my thoughts no matter how hard I tried to focus on normal things. Homework became a blur. Conversations felt distant. Even routine tasks couldn't ground me the way they usually did. Ryan noticed almost immediately. "You've been out of it all morning," he said one day, setting a cup of coffee in front of me. "Still thinking about it?" I hesitated, then gave a small shrug. "Maybe." He smiled like he already knew the answer. "It suits you," he said. "That side of you." I didn't respond, because the truth wasn't simple. Part of me had enjoyed it, more than I wanted to admit. But another part felt uneasy, unsure what it meant or where it could lead. Every thought of it came with a mix of curiosity and hesitation, like standing at the edge of something I didn't fully understand. Still, the pull didn't go away. Over the next few days, things escalated quietly. Ryan started encouraging me more, different outfits, small changes, little suggestions about posture, expression, tone. At first, I pushed back. It felt risky, too close to something I wasn't ready to define. But resistance faded faster than I expected. Each time, it became a little easier to say yes. And the mirror, once just a reflection, became something else entirely. A glimpse into a version of me that felt both unfamiliar and strangely natural. Then came the moment I was alone. Ryan had stepped out, leaving the apartment quiet. On my bed, everything was already laid out, the clothes, the makeup, arranged almost deliberately. I stood there for a long moment, staring. I could have ignored it, closed the door, walked away, but I didn't. Curiosity won again. Piece by piece, I went through the process. Slowly, carefully. The same steps, but this time without guidance, just me and my own reflection taking shape. When I finally looked up, something felt different. Not just the appearance, but the way I carried myself. There was a confidence there, subtle but real, layered over the nervous energy still lingering underneath. It was unsettling and exciting at the same time. But the thoughts that followed weren't so easy to ignore. What if someone saw? What if Emma found out? That fear sat heavily in my chest, clashing with the strange sense of freedom I felt in that moment. When Ryan came back later, I tried to act normal. He didn't notice right away, too focused on unpacking groceries. But when he finally looked up, his expression shifted instantly. "Wow," he said quietly. "You didn't wait for me this time." I felt my face heat up, unsure whether to feel proud or exposed. "You really make it work," he added. There was something in the way he said it, approval, encouragement, that made everything feel more real, more complicated. Then he said something I hadn't expected. "Why stop at just the look?" he asked. "Try the whole thing. See what it's like to actually be her for a bit." I frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Just for fun," he said. "Mannerisms, tone, the way you move. Think of it like a role." It sounded ridiculous. And yet, I didn't dismiss it. Over the next week, I found myself trying. Small things at first, how I walked, how I sat, how I spoke when I was alone. It felt awkward, almost like acting. But the more I practiced, the more natural it began to feel. That was the part that unsettled me most. I wasn't just pretending anymore. I was exploring something deeper, something I didn't fully understand yet. And then came the moment that nearly shattered everything. A message from Emma. "Hey, I might come by earlier today. Miss you." My heart dropped. I looked at myself, mid-transformation, nowhere near ready to hide it. Panic surged instantly. Should I change? Hide everything? Risk it? The questions spun in my head, each one more overwhelming than the last. Time seemed to blur after that. I paced, adjusted, hesitated. Every sound made me tense, every passing minute tightening the knot in my chest. Then a knock at the door. Not Emma. A delivery. Even so, my pulse spiked as I moved toward the door, every step careful, deliberate. I kept my head low, grabbed the package quickly, muttered a thanks, and shut the door almost immediately. Silence followed. But the adrenaline didn't fade. It only reminded me how fragile everything was. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. "Emma." I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Hey," she said. "Just wanted to hear your voice." My throat tightened. Could she hear it? The difference? The hesitation? "I miss you," she added softly. I forced myself to respond, keeping my tone steady. "Miss you too. Just relaxing at home." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. And as I ended the call, one thing became painfully clear. I wasn't just keeping a secret anymore. I was living between two versions of myself. And sooner or later, those worlds were going to collide. The secrecy became intoxicating. Fear, guilt, excitement. They tangled together until I couldn't separate one from the other. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something stronger, something harder to ignore. I was hooked. Ryan saw it before I ever admitted it to myself. "Told you," he said one morning, leaning back with that knowing smirk. "You're into this." I wanted to argue, to brush it off like it meant nothing. But the words wouldn't come. Because somewhere deep down, a part of me, the part I'd kept buried for years, was undeniably drawn to it. Then came the close call that nearly unraveled everything. A neighbor showed up unexpectedly, holding a package that had been delivered to the wrong door. My heart nearly stopped. I was fully dressed, completely unprepared. For a split second, I just stood there, frozen, heels rooted to the floor. There was no time to change, no time to think. I forced myself to open the door, trying to act normal despite the pounding in my chest. The interaction lasted only seconds. A quick exchange, a polite thank you. But the way their eyes flickered, brief, curious, sent a jolt through me. When the door shut, I exhaled shakily. I hadn't been exposed, but I'd come close enough to feel it. And strangely, that only made everything more intense. After that, the tension never left. Every step, every glance in the mirror, every quiet moment alone carried a new edge. It wasn't just about the clothes anymore. It was about stepping into something else entirely, something that blurred the line between who I was and who I might become. Ryan stayed at the center of it all, encouraging, observing, pushing just enough to keep me moving forward. With him, I felt safe. But that safety came with a cost. The deeper I went, the harder it became to step back. By the end of the week, I couldn't deny it anymore. This wasn't just a passing experiment. It was changing me, subtly, steadily, both on the surface and somewhere much deeper. And the closer Emma's visit got, the more everything felt like it was building towards something inevitable. One mistake, one wrong moment, that's all it would take. Saturday arrived faster than I was ready for. Emma had messaged earlier. She'd be spending the day over. A simple plan, something normal. But nothing about this felt normal anymore. I spent the morning restless, pacing between the mirror and the bed, adjusting small details that suddenly felt incredibly important. Every reflection reminded me how fragile this secret had become. Ryan noticed, of course. "Relax," he said, leaning casually against the counter. "Just be yourself." Then, after a pause, he added, "Or be her." The words hit differently. "Be her," I repeated quietly, my pulse quickening. He gave a small shrug. "You've been practicing. Why not try it for real?" It sounded absurd, and yet, part of me considered it. Before I could overthink it, the doorbell rang. Everything inside me tensed. I glanced through the peephole.
Emma.
She looked the same as always, bright, effortless, completely unaware of the storm building on the other side of the door. I took a breath and opened it. "Hey," I said, forcing a calm I didn't feel. She smiled immediately. "Hey, you look different." My heart skipped. "Different how?" "I don't know," she said, studying me for a moment. "Just something about you." I couldn't tell if it was a compliment or a suspicion. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than ever. Every sound seemed louder, every movement more noticeable. Ryan stayed in the background, watching everything unfold with quiet interest. At first, things felt almost normal. We cooked together, talked about classes, watched a show we both liked. But beneath it all, the tension lingered, constant and unrelenting. Every time Emma looked at me, I felt exposed. And yet, alive in a way I couldn't explain. Then came another interruption. A knock at the door. Ryan got up to answer it, but my body had already gone rigid. A maintenance worker. I was caught mid-motion, sitting forward, completely unprepared. The moment stretched as their gaze swept briefly across the room, lingering just long enough to make my stomach tighten. I forced a polite smile, barely managing a greeting. Ryan handled the rest casual as ever. When the door finally closed again, relief washed over me, but the adrenaline didn't fade. If anything, it only made everything sharper, more real, more dangerous. And as I sat there, caught between fear and something dangerously close to exhilaration, one thought echoed louder than the rest. I was running out of time before everything collided. Later that evening, Emma suggested something unexpected. "Let's play a game," she said, a playful spark in her eyes. "Truth or dare?" My chest tightened instantly. "Dare," I said before I could overthink it. "Big mistake." She smiled, clearly already planning something. "All right, I dare you to wear something you normally wouldn't for the rest of the night." Everything inside me went still. Of course it would come to this. My mind raced. The outfit, the heels, the version of myself Ryan had been quietly shaping over the past week. It was all right there, waiting. I glanced at him instinctively. Ryan just smirked, giving a subtle nod like he'd been expecting this all along. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll do it." The process felt almost ceremonial this time. Each step was slower, more deliberate. I changed carefully, adjusting every detail with precision, the fit of the clothes, the balance of the makeup, the way I carried myself. It wasn't just dressing up anymore. It was becoming. When I finally looked at my reflection, I didn't hesitate like before. The person staring back felt complete, confident, yet fragile, familiar, yet entirely new. Emma watched the whole transformation unfold. When I turned back toward her, she blinked, clearly surprised. "Wow," she said softly. "You actually make it work." The words sent a strange rush through me, pride mixed with a flicker of panic. Because this wasn't hidden anymore. This was happening right in front of her. The night only grew more intense from there. Ryan suggested taking photos just for fun, he claimed. Something to capture the moment. I wasn't so sure it was that simple. Still, I went along with it. Each pose felt like walking a tightrope. My movements were careful, controlled, but my hands betrayed me, trembling slightly whenever the camera clicked. Emma laughed here and there, teasing lightly, but her gaze lingered longer than usual. There was curiosity there. Something deeper, harder to read. And then almost disaster. My heel caught on the edge of the rug mid-step. I stumbled forward, balance slipping in an instant. Ryan caught me before I hit the ground. The moment froze. Emma's eyes widened. "Hey, careful." I forced a shaky laugh, brushing it off, but my pulse was racing. It wasn't just a stumble. It felt like a warning. One wrong move, and everything could unravel. Later, Emma moved closer, her expression more thoughtful now. "You know," she said slowly, "it feels like you're hiding something." My stomach dropped. The room suddenly felt too small. My mind scrambled for response, deny it, deflect, laugh it off, but nothing came out. Before I could say anything, Ryan stepped in smoothly. "All right, that's enough intensity for one night," he said casually. "Let's make drinks." The tension eased, but only slightly. It didn't disappear. It lingered, hanging in the air between us. As the night went on, it became impossible to ignore the truth. This wasn't separate anymore. There was no clear boundary between my secret and my reality. The two had collided, blending into something unstable, unpredictable, and strangely addictive. Then came another interruption. A knock at the door. Ryan answered it this time, a neighbor returning something he'd borrowed. But I was right there, mid-motion, completely exposed. For a split second, everything felt like it was balancing on a knife's edge. Emma noticed. The neighbor noticed, maybe not fully, but enough. I managed a small, controlled smile, keeping everything together just long enough for the moment to pass. When the door finally closed, I exhaled. But the adrenaline stayed. By the end of the night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't just experimenting. I was living in two versions of myself at once. There was the version Emma knew, steady, familiar, safe. And then there was this other side, bold, exposed, alive in a way I hadn't expected. And I didn't know which one felt more real anymore. Emma leaned closer before the night wound down, her voice softer now. "You're different tonight," she said. "I can't explain it, but I like it." My heart skipped. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last long. Because underneath it, the tension remained. One mistake, one wrong word. That's all it would take. Later, after everything quieted down, Emma stepped away to change, leaving me alone in the living room. The apartment felt different in the dim light, quieter, heavier. I sat carefully on the couch, adjusting my posture without thinking, still caught in the role I hadn't fully stepped out of. Ryan appeared behind me. "You did better than I expected," he said quietly. "You really became her tonight." I exhaled slowly. "It doesn't feel like pretending anymore." "That's because it isn't," he replied. His words lingered longer than I wanted them to. I tried to ground myself, to remind myself this was temporary, controlled. But the feeling wouldn't fade. Then, a sharp knock at the door. It cut through the silence instantly. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "That's unexpected." My pulse spiked. Without thinking, I stood and moved toward the door, each step careful, deliberate. I hesitated for just a second, then leaned in to look through the peephole. And whatever waited on the other side, I knew, somehow, that this moment might change everything. My stomach dropped the second I recognized who was at the door.
Emma.
She wasn't supposed to be back yet. Through the peephole, I saw her shift her weight, glancing down the hallway before knocking again. Louder this time, more certain. My pulse spiked. I turned slightly, catching my reflection in the mirror across the room. There I was. Not half-hidden. Not uncertain. Fully visible. The version of me I'd been keeping secret stood in plain sight, impossible to deny now. My chest tightened as panic crept in, every breath shallow, every movement suddenly too loud. Behind me, Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay calm," he murmured. "Just act like nothing's wrong." Nothing's wrong. The thought felt almost absurd. Still, I nodded, even as my hands trembled. I opened the door. Emma stepped inside, and the moment her eyes landed on me, everything changed. She froze mid-step, her expression shifting, surprise first, then curiosity, then something deeper I couldn't quite read. "Alex," she said slowly, "what are you wearing?" I tried to answer. Nothing came out. The words stuck somewhere between my thoughts and my voice, leaving me exposed in more ways than one. Ryan stepped in smoothly, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "It's just something we've been trying," he said lightly. "A bit of fun." Emma didn't look convinced. Her gaze moved between us, searching, piecing things together. There was something sharp behind her expression now, not anger, but awareness. Before I could find a way to explain, a sudden crash shattered the silence. We all flinched. A cup from the kitchen had fallen, breaking against the floor. The sharp sound echoed, leaving behind an uneasy stillness. Emma's attention snapped back to me, her expression more focused now. "This isn't just a joke, is it?" she asked quietly. My throat tightened. This was it. The moment I'd been avoiding, circling around, pretending wouldn't come. Ryan moved closer, his hand brushing my shoulder, steady, grounding, but also pushing. "Maybe you don't need to hide it," he said softly. "Maybe it's time to be honest." His words lingered, heavy in the air. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat louder than the last. One step forward, and everything would change. One step back, and I'd be pretending again. Emma took a small step closer, her eyes locked onto mine now. "Alex," she said, voice quieter, almost fragile. "Just tell me the truth." I looked at her, then at Ryan. Then, almost instinctively, at the mirror behind me. Two versions of myself stared back. One familiar, safe, expected. The other uncertain, exposed, but undeniably real. The room felt still, like it was waiting. Even the broken glass on the floor seemed to glint with tension. a reminder of how easily things could shatter. My breath caught. This wasn't just about clothes anymore. It was about who I was and who I was willing to be. The lights flickered suddenly, casting shifting shadows across the walls. For a split second, it felt like the world itself had paused, holding its breath along with me. "Alex," Emma whispered again. I could feel Ryan watching, expectant. Everything balanced on a single moment, a single choice, a single word. I drew in a breath, standing there between two versions of myself, and just as I was about to speak, everything seemed to freeze, like the world had been cut mid-scene.